Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories, where today, neighbor's backyard is filled with beehives and bees are now in my yard. What can I do? My neighbor has a shed in her backyard, and I noticed that a few bees were beginning to gather on the roof of her shed, so I told her about it and she said, "Yeah, we'll handle it." A couple of days went by and I noticed that more and more bees began to bundle up, but I didn't worry too much as she said that they would handle it. Well, a week has gone by and she has yet to do anything about it. Their backyard shed is covered with bees now and they're spreading into my backyard. I have 3 dogs who have now all been stung by them, and now I can't even let them out to the backyard without worrying about them getting stung again. I once again told my neighbor about what just happened and her response was, "Oh well, we did our best to get rid of them." So she is aware of the issue, but she just doesn't care since the part of her shed that's infested with bees faces my side of the gate, which unfortunately I'm stuck to deal with the bees more so than they are. I'm worried about my yard getting more infested with bees, but especially more worried about the safety of my dogs. I don't know what to do or if I can call some sort of authority to come deal with this. I'm in California if that helps. Update: I got in contact with a beekeeper and they said they would be glad to help. But since it's not on my property, I would need to get consent from the neighbors in order for the beekeeper to collect the bees. So when I told my neighbor, she rejected my resolution and said that they will handle it. Later on that day, I overheard my neighbor's daughter crying, saying that she got stung by a bee, and so did their dog. The situation can be easily handled, but my neighbor is so stubborn that there's not much I can do anymore. If these are honeybees, contact a local beekeeper. Beekeeper guilds usually have an 800 number for bee swarms. Call them up and ask for help. Somebody should be able to visit and convince the swarm to go with them. If they are not honeybees, then you have another problem. You might need to call vector control or an exterminator, but start with a beekeeper. Am I the jerk for wanting to divorce my wife because she wants to keep in touch with her ex? I, 30 male, am married to my wife who's 29, and we've had issues where she wants to keep checking on her exes to see if they're okay. I have expressed to her that I don't think this is healthy and it bothers me a lot. She promised me that she would stop and even blocked everyone, and we continued with our lives. Recently, while I was traveling, I found out that she was trying to get in touch with her ex. She claimed she just wanted to check in and see how he's doing. All of this happened behind my back, and if I hadn't found out about it and confronted her, she probably would have brushed it off. I feel lost. To me, this is cheating. I don't trust her anymore, and I'm considering divorce. The situation is not healthy for our relationship, and I have expressed several times how her actions affect me. We have 2 kids together, and I'm tired of constantly worrying about her reaching out to her exes. I told her I want a divorce, but she keeps saying it won't happen again and we should try to work things out. However, I honestly don't want to. Even if we go to counseling, I'm exhausted. At this point, I just want the kids to be happy, and I'm willing to live with her for a while until we prepare the kids and our finances for the divorce, but not as a couple. Am I overreacting? Edit: the ex was not in a relationship. They just hooked up several times because my ex was afraid of getting into a relationship with this guy. She has stated multiple times how nice he is, how great their times together were, and she even talked about our relationship with him. I also have several exes, including an ex-fiance and casual partners, but they are irrelevant to me. I don't understand people saying that I'm being controlling. We have 2 kids who require a lot of care. How do you find time to look into these things? I took the kids with me so she could rest up. I just don't get it. Edit 2. Firstly, I completely disagree that I'm controlling. I expressed how I felt and she willingly said that she would block them. I will never disregard my feelings. Prioritizing my own well-being and emotional health is important to me right now. The kids are definitely mine. I don't care about the financial part as money is not an issue. If she wants child support, alimony, whatever, she can have it. I care about my mental health and being well for my kids. She's making her choices and she's free to do so, but I don't want to be part of this. I've enjoyed my life quite a bit. I have no time for these games. Update: we've had an open conversation without judgment with a lot of understanding. It turns out she's been hiding a lot more than I realized. She's definitely been unfaithful, as she admitted it. Anyway, I feel a mix of sadness and relief now that she's finally come clean. I'll eventually file for divorce and let her go once everything is sorted out. Thank you for your advice. I really appreciate it. And to those who labeled me as jealous or controlling, well, reality can be quite different from what you assume. Not the jerk. She lied to your face, broke her promise, all in pursuit of doing something most would consider cheating, or at least wildly inappropriate. Intended or not, the optics and implications of unblocking and reaching back out to her exes when you're away are crystal clear. I also have no doubt that if you pushed this very valid concern, she'd turn around and vilify you as controlling or mistreating her. No amount of therapy can win back the trust when she went out of her way to deliberately and methodically do things behind your back. Not the jerk. If your wife lied to you about this, what else might she be lying about? You need to understand that she has an insatiable desire for attention. From you, from her exes, from her coworkers, it never ends. If you're at the point of considering divorce, get your ducks in a row and do it. Having kids makes it more difficult, but sometimes it just is what it is. Am I the jerk for cutting off my friends after they made fun of my boyfriend? So I had 3 guy friends. They're not my only friends, but we were pretty close, and I've hooked up with all of them. This stopped years ago. In fact, 2 of them are in long-term relationships with 2 of my best friends, and they are aware of our history. Now, my boyfriend and I have been together for about a year, and it's been the best relationship I've had. He's also aware of my history with my friends. I've assured him that this is in the past, and I have no attraction to them now at all, and that he's all I need. I actually asked my friends to never talk about this ever. However, the other night we were all hanging out, and I headed out with a friend to get some stuff. When we got back, my boyfriend's mood was much different. He played it off, but I could tell something was bothering him. When we got back to my place, I pressed the issue, and he says my guy friends kept making jokes about how they had been with me before he came into the picture. I was furious and confronted my friends. They kept saying that they were trying to man up my boyfriend since I told them that he felt insecure about them. My boyfriend kept trying to save face, saying things like the past is in the past, but I can tell that he's feeling down. I decided to cut off my friends because not only did they disrespect my boyfriend, but also me by calling me names. My 2 best friends keep saying that it's not a big deal and that me and my boyfriend are overreacting. How can I make this up to my boyfriend? Not the jerk for cutting off the 3 guy friends. If your other 2 friends continue to make you feel in the wrong, I'd cut ties with them too. You're the jerk for telling any of them your boyfriend was insecure about your past. OP, I was trying to help. I've heard stories about a girl's past being exposed because their friends let it slip. I didn't want that to happen. I really thought my guy friends would understand. These are not great friends. I think you're correct in cutting them off. They show a distinct lack of empathy and emotional intelligence. Apologize to your boyfriend for sharing his insecurities. Unless he specifically said that it was okay, these were likely told to you in confidence and you broke that confidence. You're going to have to earn back his trust. I don't know the best way to do that, but it sounds like the 2 of you need to have a conversation. OP, he never said that it was okay. Looking back, I realized that I really messed up. If your boyfriend dumps you, and he might, you need to realize 2 things. He's young, inexperienced, and this was painful for him. It's not him being insecure, it's trusting crappy people that hurt him. Second, if he leaves, that's not a green light to go back to business as usual with the friend group. They behaved like cruel kids. That's stuff that you don't look past. OP, I will never touch them again, even if my boyfriend breaks up with me. Update, my boyfriend has finally opened up. He said he's glad I cut off my friends and that he wasn't going to ask me to do it, but if I hadn't, he would have left. He said he doesn't want to break up over this as it wasn't something wrong I did. He gets that most people have a past and that I didn't even know him back then. He said it just became too real when my ex-friends opened their mouth. He also is mad at me because I told them his insecurities, something that I know was a horrible mistake. I apologized profusely and promised that it would never happen again. He also says he feels inadequate and inferior. He said, "How the heck am I supposed to compare? I'm just one guy." I assured him that he's way better than them and that he's all I want from now on. We kept talking for a while and eventually we hugged it out. He also says that he doesn't want to hang out with any other of my former partners. He says he won't freak out or anything if we run into one at like a party or something, but he won't hang out with them, which is more than fair after what happened. One of my best friends reached out and apologized for what she said. She thought my former friends just mentioned our history and my boyfriend got all insecure, but didn't realize just how horrible they were. She said she broke up with him already, and I haven't heard from the other friend. Update 2. Boyfriend and I seem to be back on track now. He's back to his old self and has been very loving and sweet. I've been as affectionate as possible, making him meals, got him a couple of gifts, and complimented him. We had a deep talk about boundaries, and we talked about what happened. He forgave me for talking about his insecurities to my friends, and I promised him that I won't ever do anything like that again. We also talked about his insecurities. By the way, he's fully aware of my previous posts, and he said it's fine because no one knows who we are. Well, after I assured him that he's the best I've ever been with, which is true, and that I don't want anyone else but him, well, he got his confidence back. So things are good now with us. I've learned my mistake. As for my former friends, I've blocked them on everything, and I have no desire to ever see them again. This is my last update, and I don't expect my relationship to never have problems again, but I think we've moved on from this now. You're fortunate to have a forgiving boyfriend when it comes to something like blurting out his insecurities. You know he would be just as right to walk away after a betrayal like that. OP, I'm fully aware he has every right to break up with me, but he forgave me, and I'm grateful, and I won't ever betray him again. Am I the jerk for telling my son-in-law that his wife, my daughter, cheated on him? I've been a long-time lurker. Never thought I'd need to post anything, but pretty much everyone in my life is telling me that I'm wrong. I'm 55 years old, and I've been married for 35 years. I have one kid, a daughter, and she's 32 now. I will call her Alice, and she's been with John for 10 years, married for 4. Alice has always wanted to have kids, but they held off for a while to focus on their careers. But she recently told us they were going to start trying to get pregnant. I love my daughter and feel I have always been a good father to her, but I admit she and my wife have always had a special bond. This past weekend, we went out to dinner with some friends and had a few drinks. When we got home, we had a few glasses of wine. I point this out because my wife rarely drinks, so she is a lightweight. She was tipsy and we were talking about potentially becoming grandparents, and she made a comment about Alice's marriage that caught my attention. She said they've overcome a lot in the marriage, but then stopped herself and didn't continue. This made me curious because they've only been married 4 years, and I wasn't aware of any roadblocks they had run into. Not that they share everything with us. I pressed her on what she meant, and finally she confessed that 1 year into the marriage, my daughter cheated with a coworker. She tearfully confessed this to my wife a week after it happened because she supposedly felt so guilty. She begged her not to say anything, and she kept her word until now. I was blown away because I did not think she would ever do something like that. I don't know all the details. She got flirty with a coworker, and eventually they hooked up together once. Then she stopped it and has apparently been faithful ever since. I did feel some slight guilt because I knew my wife would not have told me if she was sober, and I wonder if I should have not pressured her on it, but I just can't undo what I learned. I should now point out that when I was a lot younger, I was with someone who cheated on me. I have zero tolerance for cheaters due to that, so I might be biased. John is also like a son to me and my wife. She did ask me not to say anything, and this confused me. When she had said they had overcome a lot, and I found out what happened, I had assumed John eventually found out and they worked through it. But no, all she meant was that Alice grew as a person and became a better wife. I didn't push her any further. I let her go to bed. I had not drank as much. I stayed up all night thinking. I decided then and there that either my daughter would have to confess or I would tell John. Not only do I think he has a right to know, but I would never be able to interact with him again in a normal manner knowing this secret. I do love my daughter, and I also worry about the potential fallout because she's trying to get pregnant, and what if John finds out after the child is born? I feel like he has a right to know. I would not keep it a secret if I found out John cheated on her. The next day was Sunday, and I knew I needed to talk to my daughter. My wife was against this, but I did end up having her come over the next day. It did not go well. First, she blew up at her mother for telling me. Then she yelled at me when I told her either she confesses or I'm telling John. She said it was none of my business, etc. I disagreed. John is part of the family. She said I would destroy her life if I did this. She'd hate me, etc. She stormed out. Well, I did end up telling John, and the fallout has been tremendous. John packed his bags and left the home the next day, and is apparently refusing to try counseling and intends to pursue divorce. Everyone hates me, my daughter hates me, my wife is also not on my side. All our family members said that I overstepped. I've spoken to some of my friends, and they said I blew up my relationship with my daughter over this. The only one showing me any kindness is John, who thanked me for telling him. My wife isn't on my side, and I suspect this is because she was hoping for grandkids. We both were. I just feel like I didn't blow up their relationship. Alice is the one who cheated and lied. I love her to death, and now I wonder if I made the right choice. Should I have just kept this to myself? I've always been friendly with John, and we have dinner with them at least once a month, not including holidays or birthdays. I know I could not interact normally around him, and so what should I have done? Ban them both from my home without explanation? Never go to their house again? And if they have kids, my wife will definitely want us over there more often, so I don't think I could hide this. I suck at poker, I just can't fake it. So should I have kept quiet? And I guess also, am I wrong for being upset that my wife isn't on my side? Morally, you did the right thing. Personally, your daughter might never forgive you. Heck, your wife might not either. I feel like it would have come out at some time. Her office coworkers probably know as well. It's a good thing they don't have any kids yet. In a perfect world, she would have confessed after the affair was over and gone through counseling then. Hearing it from a family member 3 years later must have been humiliating. If I was John, I'd want to know. It was the right thing, even if you're going to suffer a lot for it. Not the jerk. If John cheated on Alice and you knew, would Alice want you to tell her? At the end, what does it matter if Reddit says not the jerk? OP has to decide if he's okay with his decision. He also has to decide if it was worth his marriage and his relationship with his daughter. I doubt either woman is ever going to forgive him for this, even if they were in the wrong. Not the jerk. You should ask your wife why she was okay with keeping your daughter's cheating a secret for 3 years and not do what you did and try to get her to tell her husband the truth. How could she look at your son-in-law and spend time with him knowing your daughter had cheated and not feel bad and want to tell him? I'd be wondering if there's anything else that your wife has been hiding. You're the jerk big time. I don't know why Reddit seems to love parents that overstep boundaries when it comes to their kids' relationships for some reason. But you had absolutely no right to share that information after your wife told it to you in a moment of vulnerability. Your daughter and her husband are adults, for goodness sake. Let her live her life without your interference. I personally would be limiting or cutting contact with you over ruining my marriage. Found another cheater? Don't want to be exposed as a cheater? Then don't cheat. Pretty simple. You're deranged. His daughter had a lapse in judgment and appeared genuinely remorseful. Nothing productive came out of him doing this except he's destroyed his relationship with his daughter and damaged his relationship with his wife. Very low emotional intelligence move. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his daughter? Please let us know. All I know is if I were John, I would have eternal gratitude for my father-in-law telling me the truth about this. Am I the jerk for excluding my step-grandkids from a tradition? I'll give some background. I'm a pretty young grandmother. My daughter Jenny has 2 kids who are 9 and 13. My daughter remarried to a man that has his own kids, so I have step-grandkids who are 11 and 10. So a total of 4 kids in this story. I will refer to them as biological and step-grandkids to make it as clear as possible. The bio and step-grandkids don't get along well. Watching from the outside, it's very easy to see that the 2 parents are pushing them together. I've heard so many complaints and informed the parents that force bonding won't help them. They didn't take my advice, and overall, all of the kids have to do everything basically together. I've been teaching my biological grandkids how to sew for a while. Every year, we've been making a blanket for over a few months. The 2 kids love it, and I enjoy the tradition. I informed the biological kids we will start soon on the next project. They seemed excited. I got a call from my daughter asking me to include the step-grandkids. The biological grandkids were talking about the blanket, and it made the other grandkids upset that they weren't invited. So now my daughter called me to include them. I told her no, that this is just something I do with my biological grandkids. We've done this for years, and I'm not changing it. I also informed her that forcing them into the tradition will not help the kids. They already dislike their step-siblings. She called me a jerk, and according to my other daughter, it's caused issues in her family. Edit. They've been married for less than a year. They have their own grandparents that they don't live close to. I've invited them to join when the biological grandkids come over. I've only seen them on holidays. I don't even know if they want a relationship with me. If they're interested in sewing, I would be willing to teach them, but again, I'm unsure if they are. No jerks here. Grandma is doing her best to maintain traditions and to protect the biological grandkids from feeling like nothing will ever be just theirs ever again. I totally get it. Mom is trying to create shared positive experiences, hoping that it brings people together. She doesn't want any kids under her roof to feel like second-class family members. On the flip side, both are pushing the boundaries of ideal behavior by ignoring the valid concerns of others in this situation. None of you are the jerks, but if you want something approaching a solution, do a small project with all 4 kids and continue the larger one with the more experienced sowers separately. I think mom is the jerk because she's trying to mix water and oil and it's clearly not working and just causing more resentment between the kids, the more her and her husband try to push them together. Don't rip off my elderly parents. Back in 2004, I came home from college to find my parents' driveway ripped up and unusable. My mom was in tears because the contractor had just informed her that the price of the project had gone up to double the original quote, gave no reason to why it would now cost double. My parents were teachers in a crappy city in a poor state, so they didn't make a lot of money. It was through careful investments and savings that they moved to upper middle class. My parents lived in a nice neighborhood in this crappy city and worked hard their whole lives and took pride in their home. It wasn't an extravagant house by any means. It was a tri-level 70s Brady Bunch house in a city of one-story adobe houses. Never renovated, but well-built and well-maintained the 30 years they lived there. Contractors would often assume my parents were rich and try to squeeze them for money. So this is something we unfortunately have been dealing with my entire life. When this all happened, they were retired and on a fixed income, so projects like this were thought out and prepared for carefully. My mom was beside herself with stress about the whole situation, but managed to keep it from me when I called every Sunday. So imagine how mad I was to learn about the situation. This particular contractor went out of his way to make the driveway a disaster area, and my 70-year-old parents with mobility issues had literally been prisoners in their home for 2 weeks, unable to get through a construction zone. The contractor had stopped all work until the full payment was made. My parents had already paid half of the first quote. They had drug out a straightforward job by only having 1 or 2 workers show up whenever they felt like it, work an hour, and then leave. I had no idea while I was at school that this project had been going on for over a month. That semester at school, I had taken a legal class for my area of study and had just written a paper on contract law. Within an hour of me getting home, I had the contractor on the phone. To this day, I don't know what came over me. It's like I was possessed by the ghost of a prosecuting legal shark. I insinuated, but never specifically said that I was their lawyer. I threw out legal terms and accused them of being in breach of their bid and a legally binding contract which, fortunately, had some language meant to cover themselves. Pointed to all the areas where they had violated their agreement and the obvious intentions to do over my parents. I had the contractor stuttering and stammering and promising to make the job a priority. When I got off the phone, both my parents were staring at me in shock and made the statement I made earlier like I was possessed. Victory was won when the next morning at 6 a.m., a full crew of at least 5 guys plus the contractor came out and finished the job in 3 hours. Contractor never asked for the revised price and not even the second half of the first price. He just did the job and left. Didn't leave an invoice or an address to send payment to. Of course, mom being mom tried to get in touch with him to make the second half of the payment, and he got so freaked out that she was going to sue him that he dropped off a check for $1,000 from accounting errors and apologized profusely. Plus, he left all the extra supplies that he had overpurchased and had billed my parents for. It was enough that the following year, when my father had to go from walker to wheelchair, we had enough concrete and supplies to build a ramp. Wow, that felt good. And one thing I could do for my parents after a lifetime of them sacrificing for me made my whole college education worth it to me. Moral of this story, don't mess with the elderly. And give a daughter an education and she'll defend you from the wolves. Am I the jerk for not marrying my girlfriend earlier? Me, 27 male, and my girlfriend, 27 female, have been together for nearly 11 years, since we were 16. When we were teenagers, we never really discussed marriage. Her parents married in their early 20s, whereas my parents married in their early 30s. So we both had different upbringings when it comes to the right age to tie the knot. I always envisioned us getting married in our late 20s, once we finished university, bought a house, etc. However, I know she wanted to be married in her mid-20s, similar to her parents. When we were 23, her dad was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, which devastated my girlfriend's family. The night she found out, I came over to her house, where she bawled with me for hours and cried, "He won't be able to walk me down the aisle now." I reassured her that her dad would be at our wedding and everything would be okay. For 2 years, it was okay, until it wasn't. When we were 25, I planned to propose to her at the end of 2023, when I finished my master's. However, in July, her dad passed unexpectedly from pneumonia. This was an extremely hard time for my girlfriend as she was so close to her dad. My girlfriend is the youngest of 3 boys, and she's the only daughter. A few months after the funeral, the topic of marriage popped up where she stated, "I never want to get married now. If Dad can't be there, I see no point. I reassured her, saying that we can pay respects to her dad at the wedding, but she refused. So every couple of months until now, I've asked her wedding-related questions like, how many bridesmaids would you have? But she just doesn't seem interested. I sat her down last night and talked about our timeline for our future and whether marriage was going to be something on the cards for us, and she replied that we had our chance to get married and it's too late now. I know she's still hurting and grieving her dad, but I feel like she resents me for not marrying her earlier. She's assured me that she still wants to be with me, but she doesn't want to have a wedding now. She needs to grieve her dad and also the version of the wedding she imagined with him. It sounds like some important conversations should have been had earlier. Her wedding is never going to be what she imagined. She's waited for you to be ready. Now you can wait for her to be ready. OP. Yeah, I understand. I waited because I wanted to save money and finish my degree. I couldn't devote my full attention to a wedding while I was studying. I waited not because I didn't love her or because I didn't want to marry her. I just wanted to finish a chapter in my life, university, before I started a new one. And she can't while she's grieving her dad. You needed time, she needs time now. Neither one because you don't love each other, but very valid reasons nonetheless. She gave you the time, now it's your turn. So at 23, your future father-in-law was diagnosed with MS. You made a promise to her that her dad would walk her down the aisle. At 25, his health starts taking a downward turn. This is also when you start planning on maybe proposing in 2 years. 7 months ago, when you were 26 to 27, he passed. And it was at this point you bring up marriage and continue to bring up wedding planning despite her telling you that she's not interested. No one's saying you should rush into a marriage, but you knew you wanted to marry her. It was your own time frame and changing goalposts that were holding you back. You said you just wanted to finish school, but that's a lie because you also said you needed to be in your late 20s, save money, and buy a house. Why would you want to buy a house with someone you're not married to before marriage too? There's always something going on in life. What about what she wanted? Where did you ever compromise for her? Why couldn't you do a small, inexpensive ceremony so her father could be there? You knew he had MS for 4 years. Her comment about him walking her down the aisle wasn't just about him attending the wedding, but being physically able to walk her down while he still could. How on earth do you think you're not the jerk for this? Let her grieve. Goodness gracious. Exactly. I can't see her getting past this. Getting through her grief will bring perspective, and the perspective here is that OP didn't love her enough to veer off his timeline even after being together for years. So imagine if the man was the one saying this. My mom passed away and can't be at our wedding, so now I don't want to marry you anymore. Would 100% of you guys be making excuses for him about how she needs to stop bringing up the topic and that he needs space? No, you would be calling him a man-child and telling her to leave him. Honestly, I hope OP leaves her and finds someone who he can actually have a happy marriage with. Losing a parent sucks. I've lost both of mine, but you don't take that out on your partner. It's not okay whether you're male or female, so stop making excuses for her crappy behavior. My Karen roommate keeps throwing away my perfectly good food. My roommate, Tammy, and I are both on fairly limited budgets. I get a little help from my parents, so I have a little bit of a buffer in my income. I tend to make my meals for myself, where I will have leftovers so that I can skip making myself a lunch or a dinner later in the week. Tammy, on the other hand, makes each meal as precisely as she can so she doesn't waste any money. Just two different ways of looking at meals, I guess. Just after Christmas last year, Tammy was very low on money and asked if she could please have some of my leftovers. I agreed. Instead of serving herself a small portion to see if she would even like my food, she just took a full portion. She ate about a quarter of what she took and then she threw the rest in the trash. I didn't say anything at the time. Almost the exact same thing happened 2 weeks ago. This time, I asked her to please just try a little before she took a full portion. She said she was really hungry. Almost an entire meal in the trash again. 2 nights ago, she asked for my spaghetti. I said no. It isn't really going to affect me for her to throw away a meal, but it means she's wasting not just my money I spent on the food, but also my time I spent getting the ingredients and preparing it. She isn't talking to me now, but she is complaining to other people about me being cheap and letting her starve. I'm not. I actually gave her a box of generic mac and cheese for her to eat. I'm just not going to watch my hard work literally go in the garbage. She thinks I'm being a jerk because I won't share my food. I would share if she wasn't wasting it. Not the jerk. You tried to be kind and help her out when she was in need. Then she threw your help in the trash. She's the jerk. Plus, wow, you even gave her food she could make for herself. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.